This is Alaska Reid, and you're listening to Songminer. Today's guest is Petey, P-E-T-E-Y, in case I confused somebody, because maybe I've said his name so many times. I needed to spell it. Anyways, today's guest is Petey, and I'm very happy to have him on the show. He kind of blew my mind, as all the guests do, because I obviously make assumptions before people come on the show about their process or about the thing that's most important to them in a song. And so far, without fail, they always surprise me. And that's what I love about this. And I hope y'all love that too. So Petey has a crazy process of how he starts writing a song. So please enjoy that and listen to it. The album he just put out on September 22nd, I believe, is called U.S.A. And we talk about the song I'll Wait from that album. Big thanks to my producer Bronwyn, as always. And please enjoy this episode with Petey. And catch him. I think he's touring around the U.S. right now. So go catch him. It's hard to keep track. Everyone's on tour. Or everyone's taking like a week break and then they're back on tour again. But go catch Petey. What's funny is because I was doing some snooping on you and I realized you're from Detroit, which is funny.
Yeah, I was born in Detroit, in like the suburbs of Detroit. And then I moved to Chicago when I was like 8. So I still have family and stuff there. But like I feel like my formative roots are in Chicago. But we were bopping around back and forth.
My mom is from Detroit, and my grandparents live in Oxford, Michigan.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Do you know where that is?
I do, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, so I went back and forth between Detroit and like Grand Rapids a lot as a kid, so that's where my family's at. But yeah, I'm super into like Chicago sports, so I'm always wearing like Chicago sports hats and jerseys like all the time, so that's why a lot of people just like kind of assume that I've been there my whole life, but pretty close.
Yeah, Midwest. You know, it's funny too, because my mom's always saying, she's like, because I remember when I moved to California from Montana when I was younger, I saw my first rock shows in LA, and my mom was also there with me, of course, because I was younger. I was like 14.
Yeah, cool though.
Yeah, she's like, you got to see a rock show in Michigan. It's got like the Midwest. She's like, people really have a thing in the Midwest for rock music. Do you think that's true?
I think there's something to be said for going to concerts in cities that are like outside of LA and New York in general that I've noticed, because it's just like, I don't know, I feel like if you go to a show in Chicago, it's just fans there, and it's just people who are buying tickets specifically because they're like a huge fan of the band. And I feel like going to shows in LA and New York, or even playing at them, it almost feels like more like an industry event, sort of like a shitty way, kind of. And so I don't know, I just feel like that kind of like permeates the vibe of most shows that I go to in a little bit of a bummer way. So I kind of understand where your mom's coming from. It's just, you go to a show in the Midwest and it's just like, you are certain that everyone there is just a huge fan of the band, and those are the only people there. And it creates just like kind of like a different vibe and a different energy. But yeah, totally.
Okay. Rock shows in Michigan. I know I got to go out there. My grandparents are always like, come play. But it's always hard to route tours and stuff unless you're doing something big.
For sure, yeah. I mean, Detroit's a tough market too, but like, you know, Grand Rapids is growing. I feel like more tours are stopping there. It's a cool town. But yeah, we're doing a whole, like, our whole second leg is a big Midwest thing I'm super excited about. I love small Midwestern towns. They're some of my favorite places to be.
My favorite place I've played is Columbus, Ohio, because my dad's from Ohio.
Yeah.
So he's not from Columbus, but I played there, and my cousins came down, and people were just so crazy at the show, but not in like a mean, bad way, because sometimes you have that.
Yeah.
But they were just excited, you know.
Yeah. That's the best. The best part about touring is just being surprised by cities that you wouldn't necessarily like go to on vacation, but you're stopping there and then you realize it's an awesome place. Des Moines, Iowa is that for me too. Like I love that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So your demo, I don't know, it really rocked. And it kind of reminded me of the Japan Droids a bit or something. I really love that band. Just that pure energy.
Totally, yeah. And we had the blown out guitars in it too. So that was fun. We just did DI guitars and then blew them out. And we were thinking Japan Droids as we were doing it also.
can control every nuance, every thought. I don't really got what it takes today to get up and put shoes on. But be still, my heart will be still. Be still, my heart, be still. I'll wait for the moment to pass. It doesn't really matter how I feel. Between now and then, it always ends.
Do you want to talk about how that song came about? How did you start it? Was it just you by yourself? I mean, walk me through either your typical process or the process of that song. Or
This one's kind of an interesting one because I like deviated from my typical process. So like in the past, I usually just make loops on Logic, like MIDI loops. I can't really play piano or keyboard, but I like to like plug in MIDI notes on the grid and like make synth loops out of them just by using really like shitty sounding Logic stock stuff. And then I'll write a whole song to that loop. So for a while, like my songs are usually just the verses are quiet and like the choruses are louder with different drums, but I don't deviate too much on the form. And so I did that for like my whole first record and a lot of the second record. And I would print out those MIDI stems and then give them to a producer who knows their way around like a real synthesizer, plug in the MIDI information to that, and then tweak the tones on like an actual piece of like, outboard gear. And then I would play like drums, guitar, and bass over that, and then that's how I'd make the song. This one was unique in that it was just like a much more, I guess, traditional process where I started it on guitar, and I like never started anything on guitar. But I like wrote this entire song on acoustic guitar, which I'd I'd never done before because I'm not really a guitar player. So I was just like, I started playing guitar to basically like play my first record live, and then I got better at it by like doing that. But this one I started on guitar and kind of like wrote the whole thing, and I went into the studio with the producers that I was working with, John DeBold and Aiden Spiro.
I know Aiden, so sweet.
Yeah, the best. He's the best. So we just like laid out a demo, classic style, and to be honest, it's like the only demo I've ever done. Before I just kind of like went in the studio, and what we started with that ended up becoming the final product in some form. This was like the first like, okay, we're demoing it out, and then we're gonna like redo everything for the record. I had never done that before, but it was cool. It gave me a lot more confidence going in the studio.
Wait, this is really weird that you're not a guitar, because to me in my head, I mean, obviously I make assumptions, so I was assuming that guitar was your kind of instrument that you started with, and basically what you're talking about doing for this song, I thought that was the norm because I hear so much love for the guitar in the songs.
Yeah, I'm a drummer. Yeah. So first of all, drums are the only instrument that I'm like super confident playing it. I know that I'm good at drums. I played in high school, and that's kind of the only thing I did. And then I started writing songs by being able to plug stuff in MIDI and like Logic and stuff. And then I would just write guitar parts over that. And in order to do that, I like tuned my guitar in a really, really specifically weird way that made it really easy. So like a lot of my guitar lines are all like power chord based, but I make the power chords so you can just like bar it. So it's not necessarily, it's like a drop D with like two of the same drone note in the middle. So I tune the two strings in the middle to the same note, and then make the last two strings make it sound like an open chord. So it's just like kind of like an idiot-proof way to play guitar, where I could just do downstroke power chords, but make them sound like really, really lush chords. And that's kind of how that tuning is like what all my songs are in, pretty much. And it's weird because I tune my guitar that way, because the voicings that I type in on Logic, I don't know, my brain just kind of like goes there. They're all the same type of chords that I put on Logic, but I don't know what they are. And when I tuned my guitar to be able to play them, it just like worked out. And it still happens. So I'll still like write stuff in Logic, and then I'll learn it on guitar, and it goes like perfectly with this tuning, because it's just like how I write. I don't know. It's pretty wacky how that worked out, but it makes life a lot easier. A lot harder on my band, because they have to like relearn how to play their instruments. But so it goes. They're great.
Okay, this actually solves mysteries, but also is kind of mind-blowing to me, because I remember when I saw you at that show, I was like, oh, damn, he's definitely doing weird stuff, because you're going all the way around the neck all the time. Like, you're not just like locked in open chord position and, first fret area. You're all up and down the neck. This is what I remember in my head. It could be wrong.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah.
And that's why, too, I was thinking that you were guitar-based, because I mainly work in different tunings. And one of the things I really like about your songs is I'm not hearing identifiable classic chord voicings. That makes so much sense, but that's so crazy that you come from like a drum background, too. Because I read, too, that you played with Young Jesus, who I know those guys.
Oh, nice. When I played in that band, it was a much more straightforward rock band. The songs became organized in like a very like traditional like, pop way. And then when I just left the band because I was too busy trying to make money to live. I don't know. I was just like, I can't do this right now. So I left the band, and then they hired just like a super far out freeform jazz drummer, and their songs lost like all their structure, and then like that became the sort of like quintessential Young Jesus sound, I think that it like benefited them a lot. But yeah, it was really interesting.
You seem to like structure and driving. Like, I noticed none of your songs are really lagging in a way unless it's intentional.
Yeah.
Sometimes my default is, because I find rhythm one of the hardest parts of music, is I tend to lag, or I don't lock in with a certain beat, which I think is something that people really connect to when they hear a song. So often part of my process of fine-tuning and finishing a song is being like, I need to really feel like I've locked into a tempo or have the section squared away. And it's interesting because that just seems so baked into your songs, and now it makes sense that you're a drummer. I mean, I could be making this up.
No, because it starts with the drums. So I pretty much just I write the synth loops as drum parts. So they're all like super syncopated and super rhythmic, almost so that there's not really a choice of what the beat could be. Like, it could kind of like only be one thing. And then just super easy to lock into. I think the struggle is just trying to like switch it up and not make it too monotonous, and make sure like all my songs aren't just loops over and over again with the same sort of vibe. Which is why I think I guess I just like challenged myself with this one to like start on guitar and try and write a more traditional like pop punk vibe.
So I know you're using Logic to write, but are you thinking about production as you're writing, or are you just using Logic as like an instrument, a tool?
I was before. So in the first album that I did, I was like, all right, I'm going to produce this out as much as I can, and then really pay careful attention to the VST tones that I'm using, and then like try and get it as close as I can. Then bring this into a studio and figure out where to plug in outboard gear. And I never paid too much attention or thought about like what like guitar tones would be. I always kind of like left that up to the engineer. Just be like, I need to play guitar and I want it to sound like this. I'll give a reference, have him dial in the tones, and then yada yada, go ahead and do it, and not really think too much about it. This time I sort of went into it being like, all right, I'm working with producers for the first time. Any tones that I pick out on the Logic end, I'm pretty sure we're not going to keep. Just A, I have access to a lot more gear, and B, this is what John and Aiden do. They just are super good at and dialed at finding tones in a way that I'm not at all. So for this project, Logic was like strictly a songwriting tool and not at all something that I thought was going to be a part of like the final tune. And that totally ended up being the case.
To me, when I listen to your songs as well, and when I was listening to U.S.A., the lyrics feel like a very big part of it.
Yeah, totally.
So talk to me about that and how that comes about. Because it comes across as a main part of your song, because your lyrics really jump out.
For sure. I think it's the most important thing for me. I don't know. I guess like everything in my, like musically, everything to me seems sort of like an afterthought. And maybe it's just because I struggle with it. So I think a lot harder about the lyric writing than I do the music stuff. But yeah, it's something that is a struggle for me and something that I take a lot of time with. And there's like I have really good days with it and I have really bad days with it. But maybe it's just like an insecurity thing where I'm just, the lyrics are the only real voice that people are hearing, and it's my voice. So I want to make sure that this is exactly what I want to say, and that it's not like corny or lame or like any of that sort of stuff. I feel like I sort of like turn into like a insecure high schooler when I'm writing this shit, being like, is this cool? I don't know, like blah blah blah. Where like that instrumental vibe is like, all right, this will just be like a bedrock for me trying to say whatever. I don't know. But yeah, it's it definitely takes me the longest, and I think the hardest about it, and it's really hard sometimes. But the process is just like kind of me like walking around my living room in circles 6 hours at a time, coming up with nothing, and then I usually like smoke a lot of cigarettes. If I can't make anything work that day, I'll like drink a couple beers, and then I think that'll help. It's like kind of like a physically like unhealthy process for me, but yeah. I think it's like I ended up just like treating myself like shit and hoping that like something cool comes out of it. But
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's just kind of like how I do it.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think you have to forget the physical in a way, or you have to almost have a meditation-like experience where you just allow things to flow in, at least for me. Also, so you're not being like, that's lame, before you even explore the rest of it.
For sure. So there's that element of it. And then I think, just being in places where, like you said, just like allowing ideas to flow in. So there's like the unhealthy side of it that I just described. And then there's also like, I go on hikes a lot, and I like I don't know. Hiking is a big lyric writing vibe for me.
Do you go alone?
Yeah, I went on the same hike every day throughout the course of writing this album. It's a trail that I know really well. Like I feel like I'd be able to do it blindfolded, so I don't really have to waste energy wondering where to go. So I can just like be in this beautiful zone, have a place to walk to and my mind is like totally free to wander. So I'll start and finish a lot of ideas there, and then I feel like the middle is just sort of just like sitting in a chair and wandering around, looking like a nut.
Are you bringing a journal with you, or are you typing it into your notes app, or are you just remembering when you're hiking?
I'll remember as much as I can. I feel like I'll sort of like gather as much of ideas in my brain, and my whole thing is just like if I remember it the next morning, then it's probably a good idea.
No way.
And then I'll start to put it in my notes app. As I'm like formulating it into cohesive rhyming stanzas, Wow. But I'll try and do as much of it without computers as possible.
That's wild, because I spoke to somebody else on the podcast. I can't even remember now if it's an episode that's out or one that's coming out. But my question is like, when you fall asleep and you have an idea pop into your head, do you write it down? Because for me, if I have that happen, I'm never remembering it in the morning.
Yeah.
Even if I think it's good, but maybe I just have bad ideas then when I'm going to sleep. But it's incredible that you're able to keep it in your head for so many hours.
Well, I've had enough success with coming up with an idea, completely forgetting it the next morning, and then remembering it like 3 weeks later, but in weirdly a more polished and like better form, and like using that. So that's happened to me like enough times where I trust that like if something's good or if something's gonna stick, then it'll rear its head back at some point.
Wow.
I feel like that happens a good enough amount where I like don't. Yeah. Also, my phone's just always dead. I never have like any materials or anything. Like I'm like, I don't know. I'm not great at.
You're like using a stick and like scratching your lyrics.
Yeah. Might as well.
Yeah.
But all this is just like an excuse to like not have like adult shit going on. But anyway.
So do you think it's just sitting in your brain then? I don't know. I was reading this book about a month ago called American Cosmic, which is really cool. And it's about this woman who's like a religious studies professor, and she starts studying all this stuff about UFOs and aliens, but she's studying it through this lens of not the actual aliens themselves and that as a physical realized thing, but more as the way that we are reacting to the information, either positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
And that aside, like she meets with this guy that I guess does a lot of stuff. I don't know. It's very vague because he's intentionally very wild and in the tech community and stuff. And he's come up with a lot of like biomedical ideas that have been very successful, but this thing stuck in my head about his process, and he's like, I just wake up in the morning, I look at direct sun, and I drink a huge glass of water, and then the idea is just in my head.
Yeah.
And he's talking about ideas for things with, like bone marrow, like crazy stuff. But it made me think about this idea of creativity and creating things. Is it lying in your head, or is it coming to you, or is it a combo of things? Like, how people think of that moment of inspiration.
Yeah, I don't know. I think my best guess, at least for myself, would be just like a culmination, like every single millisecond of my lived experience that's like stored somewhere completely unconsciously. You can have like a trigger for it, that, and then all of a sudden it'll just pop in. That's how we remember things. Like, it's scary to think that like sometimes like certain thoughts or memories could be the last time that you remember that ever, unless you have a certain like trigger to bring it out. But because music is like my job and I'm like have to think about it so much, I feel like my brain is conditioned to open up for those ideas to like creep in whenever they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely feel like they're stored and then you just access them.
So routine is an important part of it then, in general. You're a routine guy.
No, I wouldn't say so. I think I could probably benefit in a lot of ways from having a routine. But no, my shit is really, really all over the place. It's really random. I'll have like flashes of a routine. I'll have a routine for like 3 weeks, but then I'll get distracted and then completely forget what I was doing, and then get in like maybe a not so great routine for another week, and then I'll get like sick or like a sinus infection, and then I'll get like a healthier routine after that. So it's very like blocky for me in a way that seems super disjointed. I definitely like crave some semblance of a routine for sure. I'm bad at it though, because I'm such a terrible sleeper, so it makes it really hard to establish any sort of routine, because I try and get whatever sleep I can. I'll like fall asleep at like 4:30 in the morning and then have to sleep until like 10:30 or 11 in order to feel like I got 8 hours, feel like a normal person next day. So that kind of fucks up the whole deal. I'm definitely not like waking up at 8:30 with an alarm every morning.
Well, it's good you're a musician.
Yeah, totally.
So do you react to events immediately by writing? What I'm gathering now is that you're not the type of person who's going to get in a fight with someone and then go away and immediately write a song a therapeutic thing.
Yeah, and those aren't even really the songs that I write. I don't think I've ever written a song about a specific event. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I think that every single one of my songs is just about like a a vibe in general. That's like a culmination of like a lot, like 10 years of experiences, and sort of like a conclusion that I've come to, whether a good or bad one. And I feel like that's like pretty much all my songs. I don't think I can point to one where it's just, this is about a fight, or this is about, overcoming a specific obstacle or anything like that. It's definitely like, this is how I'm feeling in this time period of my life. And then each song is sort of like a snapshot of that.
All Wait has a line about the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
I really liked that because I'm a big believer in the grocery store as being a place, kind of like the way that you hike. It's a thing that one does a lot.
Mm.
So your mind kind of wanders when you're in the grocery store, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like taking a flight, because I feel like I get very existential if I'm alone in the grocery store. But your song's kind of about that a little bit, isn't it? I'm taking it as being about anxiety.
For sure, yeah. Grocery stores in general are a place that I've always had a really tough time being in, and I haven't really I don't know. I don't know. I don't go to therapy. I probably should, but I haven't I haven't really gotten to the bottom of it. I can probably assume, based on my experiences with other things, that first of all, being in a tight corridor space, being around a lot of people, that's no good. And then just the abundance of options and choices. You're usually there because you're getting stuff because you have to follow regimented guidelines for a recipe, also something that I'm not super good at. And then in the absence of a recipe, if you're just getting the essentials, it's coming to the realization that I have no idea what the fuck even the essentials are. So it's all those things wrapped into one. The grocery store is a really, really, really terrible time for me. And if ever I have to go, I get into a pretty panicky mode really quick. If you've ever run into me at the grocery store, it's not. I'm not going to be mean, but it's not going to be a super fun experience for either of us. You're going to walk away from it being what the heck? That was weird. But it's something specifically about that, and it's all those vibes mixed together that's just absolutely the worst place for me. I'll if I'm walking past the door of a grocery store, I feel I'll feel a physical barrier or a pressure moving my body away from that. It's crazy. I feel that way about certain bars. I feel that way about Gold Line. Have you ever been to Gold Line in Highland Park?
No.
It's this cocktail bar. It's super hip. It's always super packed. I live down the street from it. And I've never walked in that place because I just feel whenever I walk past the door, it's something that pushes me to cross the street. And it's just I hear a voice being you can't go in there. But anyway, that's kind of different subject, but maybe similar vibe.
I like it. Are you spiritual?
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I think so.
So you listen to the voices in your head.
Oh,
I mean that in a positive
way. Oh yeah. Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly, to the point where I'm I've been just dissociate, and that's kind of the only thing going on, and it feels more real than the real world going outside. And it's a bummer sometimes because I really do, I have bouts of feeling super, super nuts, but it's definitely gotten better over the years. But yeah, grocery store is a heavy vibe for me. So I reference that in the song. It's just a place that just sucks. But the meaning of the song, the I'll Wait, is that I sort of give examples of different things in pop culture that people do to get better. And then the narrator, I guess, is just me and that voice being yeah, I'm hearing you. I hear all of it. I'm good. I'm just going to wait it out, and hopefully this will go away on its own. That's sort of that vibe, instead of taking the steps to take care of these situations. I feel maybe it's just classic dude mentality, just being I'm not going to fucking go to a breathwork class. It's fine. I'm good. I'm just not going to go to the grocery store ever. So that's what the song's about. Big anxiety vibe.
But do you want to a little bit? Is that also what the song's about?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of wish you could let go and...
Oh, for sure.
Enjoy the grocery store, go to the breathwork class.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big, that's the crux of the song, that yelly part. It's just I wish I could control every nuance, every thought. So yeah, it's sort of being it's rejecting all like the vulnerable stuff while embracing it in certain moments. Just trying to make life a little bit easier to deal with, but yeah.
Are you really affected by place, California or being in Chicago or being at your house or being in a studio? Like, do you find that affects your writing and your lyrics and inspiring you in some way, inspiration?
Yeah, depending on where I am, I can completely flip like my routine, I guess. California and LA for me is like a really place to be outside. That's why I like it. I just like all the access to like hiking trails and stuff, and that's how I try and spend most of my time. And I will sorry, I got a text. What was I saying?
Place, yeah.
Hiking, yeah. So I spend most of my time outside and swimming in the ocean, like all that stuff. I'll become a completely different person. When I go back to Chicago, it's such a heavy drinking culture that I feel like the only thing to really do, and it's like really fun in certain ways, but it's just like go watch sports and drink a bunch of beers, and those experiences, it's totally different and would bring about like a totally different writing vibe, and I have written about that too. But yeah, I definitely, depending on whatever place I am, I'm definitely just like sort of absorbed in that place, and it certainly affects me a lot, to the point where I don't feel like I have as much autonomy as I thought I did, maybe.
Yeah. Are there any songs or songwriters that are a big part of your formation, the way that you created your style?
Lyrically, no, I haven't like gotten to the bottom of it yet. And I think that it's probably just because it's a culmination of all the shit that I've listened to mixed with like my own experiences. I feel like there's too much there to be able to point to like specific references lyrically, just because within my process I'm just like sort of like thinking about my own life and writing about it. So it's kind of like hard to attribute that to like a specific style of someone else lyrically. Musically, I think it's a little bit easier to diagnose. Any listener of like indie rock music between like 2008 and 2014 can pinpoint sort of like the band references that like I'm going for. And that was just the era of music that I like really enjoyed and grew up with and was listening to in high school and stuff. So yeah. No, I can't really name any specific person.
So you're not afraid of using weird words, which I think is part of what makes you an interesting lyricist from my point of view. Because don't you say lobster claw? Yeah, because I remember I had this experience when I was younger where I had this line, I smile down at the linoleum.
Mm-hmm.
And I was recording it with someone, and someone's like, that's crazy. They were saying cool that you included it, but they also thought it was just so weird.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, that's really brave of you to do that. And it had never occurred to me before in my life that words that stood out or are unusual were considered to be, maybe taboo's too strong, but something that songwriters didn't gravitate towards.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you just put them in your songs, but you're not making it the centerpiece. You're not doing like a songwritery thing where you're making a big statement by using one weird word and to make a chorus catchy. Like, it just really is a part of your lyrics, which I think make it feel very personal and very special.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's also just like realizing before I started writing songs, I never realized how much you could just like play with the idea of rhyming, and then just like have certain words rhyme with like the middle of the word. And if you have like longer words, you can just like sort of like rhyme with like the third syllable or something else, or just really sort of realizing that you have all the control because you're the one writing it. So you could just sort of like bend language to fit in the way it like works for your song. It's just like you're the one writing it. You don't have a boss,
Yeah.
Right, and that's, record labels tell you to do shit and they're not going to put it out. But fortunately, I didn't have that experience, which was really nice. But yeah, also, I feel like lyrics too is, especially with like wanting your songs to like stream a lot and have like hundreds of millions of streams and all that stuff. That's the goal. a part of that vibe, I think, is also can be just lulling the listener into a trance-like state where there's like just like a lot of repetition and stuff. And I feel like maybe having a big, weird, unusual word in there that wakes them up and be like, makes them think like, oh, what was that? You know, might take them out of it in a way that's like might weirdly not be ideal for millions and millions and millions of streams. I don't know. So
that's my problem with music, a lot of music now, actually. And maybe it's a problem with myself, but I don't like vibe music. I really need to listen to a song and I need to have the dynamics of that because I think words are very important to me.
Yeah.
And I grew up around writers, so that's always been paramount. And I feel like when it's vibe music, it's just a wall. It kind of prevents you sometimes from listening to words. So yeah, I see. I agree with you. And yeah, it's totally streaming. That's done that, but because everything's background music now.
Right. Yeah.
I never have music on in the background, which makes me sound like an asshole. But if I'm going to listen to music, I just actually sit and focus on the song.
Right. Yeah. Totally. I'm the exact same way. And if it is, I'd rather just be not listening to anything than to have like background music on.
Yeah. I hate restaurants with music because I'm listening to it too much.
Right.
But I don't even like it most of the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a curse. So are there any particular things that aren't music that inspire you when you're writing films, directors, books?
I think it's honestly just time outdoors. I really think it's just like being able to spend as much time outdoors as possible. And that's sort of like my motivation for doing this. It's just like this job has allowed me to have more free time than I've ever had, which is like really great. I love that. And like, I don't know, at the end of the day, I just love hiking and swimming. And my favorite part about touring, like, isn't actually playing. It's sort of the drives in between, just like staring out the window and all that stuff. I'm so grateful that like my job allows me to do that and also draws like so much inspiration from that stuff too. So yeah, it makes it easier. I just like sort of like shrink down my goals. I don't really have any lofty goals. I just really like my life. And I want to be able to continue doing that. And like my life right now is like doing a lot of hiking, writing songs, writing stupid skits for Instagram every once in a while, and then going on the road and spending a lot of time looking out the window in a car. And that really works for me. So whatever I can do to like keep that going, that's like sort of my true north. Like living it. It's great.
What do you think of nature songs or nature writing? Because I have a really fraught relationship with it where to me it's either the worst thing or the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Like some poets can write about nature and it feels new and fresh and amazing, and then other people can write about it and it doesn't feel genuine. I don't know.
I feel that. I don't have a lot of examples off the top of my head. I'm really not a big reader, so I don't know any like poems really, and I don't know. I don't like have a lot of reference points for that, but I could totally see how it could be polarizing. I personally don't think that I'm capable of doing it, and I wish that I was sometimes.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
I had no idea that that's necessarily an inspiration to you, because from the songs I was listening to in your albums, like you're not, doing the nature.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I'm definitely. I mean, it's an inspiration more. It's like those are the zones that I get in where I can actually find the most introspective. I can just like think the best when I'm out in beautiful places, which I think is like a totally normal thing. But I'm definitely not like looking at the forest, like writing songs about the forest, But I do wish that I could. I think that like the songwriting process is still like kind of like difficult and yucky for me at times, that there are
it's not fun.
Yeah, it sucks a lot of the time. And there's some times where I'm just like, God, I'm so jealous of people that can like write about what the sunset means to them, what springtime feels like, or like, but like that type of stuff, because that seems fun. and just writing a song, you know? And for me, it's just too much thinking, I guess. But yeah, anyway, yeah, no nature songs for me, but definitely like writing a lot in nature for sure.
Do you have a favorite line on U.S.A?
Oh,
I know that's a hard question.
yeah.
Or a song that's your favorite.
I really like the lyrics to. I like the lyrics to "Freedom to Fuck Off." And then I also like the lyrics to "Skip This One."
I was laughing about the title, yeah.
Yeah, because "Skip This One," I titled it that because the lyrics are like kind of like embarrassing. It's just like the whole vibe is embarrassing. It's just like a shitty conversation between two friends who are thinking too much about what the other one's thinking, and it's just like the desire to want this person you care about to care about the same things that you care about in the same way, and when they don't, it's always like kind of disappointing in like an embarrassing way. So yeah, that's, I don't know, I feel like I've experienced that a lot, and I was just thankful to be able to like capture that, and it's a fun tune.
Are you ever worried that if you're writing a song about somebody, like Skip This One, or an interaction, that person's going to find out?
No, because I think it's nothing's ever about a specific person, and I'm like pretty consistent with that. But I try to write themes that are universal enough to where, you know, like everyone has probably had this experience with someone at one point, if not multiple. So if I'm ever referencing a person in any of my songs, I think it's probably a culmination of like 100 different people that I've met throughout my life, and just like kind of like adding them into one vibe, because it's ultimately about me and how I'm interacting with anyone in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily like a specific time, but like a bunch of different times. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, I sort of asked you everything
Oh, nice.
that I was gonna ask. I feel you probably have somewhere to bounce to, but you gotta go hike and scratch in the sand.
Honestly, yeah, I'm gonna go hit that
Yeah.
same hike today. Start thinking about the next album, I guess. Sheesh.
Yeah, are you really gonna start thinking about the next album?
I think so, because I gotta do one, so I might as well start thinking
Yeah.
about it now. It's like you can never start too early because this shit takes a really long time. So
Do you think you're gonna do anything different? Do you have any ideas for that, or are you just kind of letting it come to you? Like, do you, sort of as a culminating question, do you ever say to yourself, I'm going to do this in a particular way to make this kind of project or make this kind of song?
no, because if I do that, I'll think way too hard about it, and I'll just bum myself out before I even start, and then I'll just do something else. So the only way I know how to tackle this stuff is by not setting any guidelines at all, and just be like, all right, let's just see what happens, and then yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
That's pretty cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so the new album will come to you in the woods. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
What is your last name?
Martin.
Petey Martin.
Yes.
Okay.
There's another Petey.
'Cause
There's another Petey Martin. He's a house producer. He produced Vin Diesel's song over COVID. So I got like 1,000 texts the next day with a bunch of people asking if I produced the Vin Diesel song, but I didn't.
Wow.
I think he's boys with Kygo, but not me. But yeah, Martin, M-A-R-T-A.
Okay, Petey Martin. Yeah, because I was realizing I didn't know your last name, and I just be like, this is Petey.
Yeah.
But obviously you just go by Petey, so that's perfect.
Yep, just like Seal, just like kind of a one name type of guy.
Seal, Petey,
Prince.
Beyonce.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Word up.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.